Welcome back. Last time we met, we were speaking on the PPP, not just the application process, which is now history, but of course the PPP forgiveness application process. So we had laid out the backdrop and all the implications for both the borrower, the bank, SBA requirements, etc. So today we're going to jump into part two, and essentially I'm going to be looking in a general way at the application process, or actually the application form and the various components to it. One thing I'll point out is that while there's still time before you need to submit this application, all borrowers should be working very closely with their lenders. So whatever bank, whatever financial institutions that you went through to get this loan, you should be in constant dialogue and contact with them. Why? Although there are general guidelines that apply across the board, the truth is, just like with the application, different banks, different institutions tend to put more emphasis on different aspects of both the application for the loan, and I would assume now also the application for forgiveness. So you want to be clear as to what your bank will be looking for. The other thing I need to point out is, do not wait until it is time to submit the application to then be scurrying around looking at what the form is asking for, trying to find the documentation. No, because I can tell you from now, for those business persons who are what we refer to as uninitiated, then you're going to find that the application for forgiveness form is quite intimidating. It's as simple as that. Okay, it is. So I advise you, take a look at it, familiarize yourself what it's asking for, because now is the time to look and see what is being asked for that you may not yet have, that you may not understand, and so you try to prepare yourself so that once it's time to go and your bank is asking you to supply document A, information B, then you're ready to roll. Because I'm sure that when you look at this form, you'll realize that, oh my goodness, it is a little more involved than I thought. Because most business persons may think it's just a case of complete a little one pager to say, okay, I'm requesting forgiveness. But no, it is quite detailed, especially when it comes to the calculation of the payroll costs. There are so many elements of that, and there are some stringent requirements as to what goes into and what is not, as opposed to what is not involved or included in that calculation. So it's going to be very important. Again, as I said in part one, your bank or your lender will work very closely to guide you. But I would say, if you have your bookkeeper, you have your accountant, this is the time for you to be sitting with such person, poring over the form, because I can tell you right now, even some accountants and some bookkeepers will at first glance realize that the form is not just a walkover. It takes a bit of calculation, a bit of analysis to come up with the right results to satisfy the loan forgiveness criteria. Okay, so that's very important. Okay, now the form has four basic components. That's the application form for the forgiveness. Has four basic components. There's section A, we call it, is really the what they call the loan forgiveness calculation form. All right, that gives quite a bit of demographic. It requires a bit of demographic information and some other things. Now you come to Schedule A. Now Schedule A is a critical component where you get into some detailed calculation of your payroll costs. You see, and you're gonna find that when we talk about this 8-week period, there are two ways to approach it. All right, there are two ways to approach it, and so when you look at the form, you can decide which of the two you're going to choose, because depending on how your record keeping is structured, depending on the kind of information that you have, you may decide, okay, I want to use this method over the next. So look early so that you can make that decision right up front. So that is what you're going to find on Schedule A. Now, interestingly enough, Schedule A has what is referred to as a Schedule A worksheet. Now, whenever you have a form, well, there are exceptions to what I'm about to say, but it's a general rule. Whenever you have a form and there are worksheets attached to that form, it tells you that it gets into detailed calculation. Because, in other words, if you can just fill in the information on the face of the form, naturally it is less technical. Once you're going to have worksheets attached to this form, what it implies is that for some of the fields on that form, there's going to be quite a bit of behind the scenes calculations, which is what worksheets are for. You see, so right away with a Schedule A having Schedule A worksheet, it tells you that hey, you're going to have to pull quite a bit of data, analyze them, structure them, organize, and come up with the answer. That will then flow from the worksheet onto Schedule A. Okay, so you have the first section, which is the loan forgiveness calculation form. Second part of the form is your Schedule A, and then you have the worksheet that is attached to your Schedule A. Okay, now the fourth section of the form is really optional, and it pulls demographic information, you know, ethnicity, background, race, etc., whatever the case is. That is optional, and I suppose that is just for, you know, information, data gathering more than anything else. So, but that Schedule A and its attached or its related worksheet is going to be where, as they say, the rubber meets the road. So early look at it will definitely help you going forward. And as I said before, yeah, engage your, some of you already have bookkeepers, you already have accountants, engage in a discussion. For those of you who are just running, you know, your own show because you can manage your day-to-day operation, you may find that even in preparing the form, you may find that engaging, you know, the service of someone who is more familiar with these things may be something that you would wish to consider. Okay, so that's it. Now, the question, I've heard a question asked. So then, if I complete my application for forgiveness and I get 100% forgiveness, it means therefore that payroll cost for that 8 week would be forgiven. The other, which of course, as we said before, would represent 75% of the loan, the loan proceeds. And the other 25%, which would go towards covering things like rent, mortgage, utilities, etc., etc. So if I satisfy all the documentary requirements and I'm successful in getting my full loan forgiven, hence converted to a grant, the question was asked, can I now, at tax time, include those expenses on my tax returns as a tax write-off? Legitimate question, but right off the bat, the answer should be glaring before you. The answer is no. To do that would be to benefit twice from the same source. Because first thing first, if you spend $1 on this item, it is $1 that someone else gave you, which in this case is the SBA. So you would not have to spend $1 from your generated revenue because you're able to cover that expense from another source of dollar. And if that source has forgiven you that loan and says, okay, take it, go with it, it didn't cost you anything. So for you to turn around and to claim it on your tax return as a tax write-off definitely tells you that will not happen. Okay, so please, when you have, or to the extent that you have your costs, because some people will have a full 100% forgiveness, some may only get 80%, some may get 20, 30. It all depends on what you qualify for given what you have submitted, what you have satisfactorily submitted as proof. Okay, so to the extent that you have some unforgiven loan, then it will continue to be a loan, which I said in my part one again, that this will be a loan that will run for maximum 2 years. You can pay it off right away, but it's up to you. The fact is you have 2 years to pay it down and it's a 1% loan. But what I was saying, now it means that if you're, you know, well organized and so you have all of this loan forgiven, and let's say you got, for information, $30,000, then yeah, Well, I should say no. The answer is you cannot turn around and have a tax write-off for this $30,000. So you may find that most persons, well, maybe not most, but some of us will end up with a situation where there's a part forgiveness and a part continues to be a loan. The part that continues to be a loan have 2 years to run. The part that was forgiven is forgiven and forgotten, but you cannot take those same forgiven expenses and write them off on your tax returns. Okay, that would be a double dip. That's what we call it. Good. Um, Next thing, having applied for forgiveness, having received forgiveness, is not the end of the story. You are required to keep all your documents, all your proof, all evidence for up to 6 years after the forgiveness is received or after you have paid back the loan. Okay, so if you apply, let's say, this month, and by the end of May you're given a determination that yes, you're fully forgiven, then you need to keep your documentary evidence for 6 years subsequent to the end of May. If on the other hand you did not get forgiveness and you successfully paid off the loan, let's say sometime by end of August, end of September, whenever it is, you're still required to keep documentary evidence up to that time. Why? Because you may ask, okay, so if I did not get any forgiveness and I had to pay this back as a full loan, why should I keep any documents? Why would they want to still come and review my documentation or whatever? The fact is, you got a preferential loan at 1%. You got a preferential loan, okay? And to the extent that it is possible that some folks may have gotten a 1% loan on the false pretense, so to speak. Then you see, you're always going to be subjected to a potential review by authorities from the SBA or so. So you're required to keep, it may never happen, but you're required to keep the documentation, I think, which is similar to almost all the other, tax documents, that kind of thing. All right. So remember now, keep the documents up to 6 years after. And these documents are subject to review, examination, whatever, by SBA inspectors if they should so desire. Okay. Um, Thinking if there's anything else I need to say other than what I always re-emphasize each time I speak with you is that what we try to do is to just pull out of a complex set of information the most basic things to give you an overview and understand as to what it's about, which hopefully will guide you in terms of a general understanding. But this application here, even more than other things that I've discussed with you, really require that you take your time, engage a person with some knowledge, and do this early so that you get yourself familiar with that. Because I can tell you, I'm a CPA, as most of you know. When I looked at the form, it's not difficult for me, but I realized it's not something that I would just be able to just take up and quickly hit the numbers and say, forget it in 15 minutes. No, it will take some doing, there's a lot of calculations and sub-calculations, etc., and cross-references. And you see, with a situation like this where you're getting a loan that can be converted to a grant, then you can understand the review, okay, is going to be very, very, very meticulous. Review going to be, especially too, remember now, I said that in the last video again. The bank was the one who middleman between you, the business person, and the SBA. They were the ones that collected the documents from you. They were the ones who vetted those documents. They were the ones who said to the SBA, yeah, we think this guy is good to go. So now that it is time to prove everything, they are being held to say, okay, you stood up, you middleman for this guy. You say, yes, SBA, go ahead. Now we want all the proof. You're going to have to stand up and ensure that we get all the proof. So it is in the interest of the bank to ensure that all documentation, all proof, all the proof are received and that they are sound. Okay, and the last thing I'll say this time, very short video, is to remind you, when these loans were given, although given through the banks, so to I mean processed through the banks, it was never the intention of banks to end up with a portfolio of loans to be servicing over the next 2 years. No, they were just facilitating a process. So the best case scenario is that people would apply, get the money, and then apply for the forgiveness, submit all necessary documentation, receive forgiveness. The banks would get paid back their money from SBA. Everybody go home, and it will be the end of the story. Now, to the extent that 70% of loans, just using a figure, if Bank A have 70% of its loans that filters through that bank, going on to remain as loans, I mean that they were not forgiven. What does that mean for the bank? It means that the bank is now struck with, unless, okay, let's say for example, this bank gave out, okay, 300,000 loans. Okay, 300,000 loans. Can you imagine if 200,000, did not successfully receive forgiveness? It means that the bank is now struck with 200,000 new loan well to process. So there's a portfolio of loan that will now have to be addressed, has to be serviced for the next 2 years by the bank. What does it mean for the bank? It means that the bank will now have to have additional capacity to handle that. And remember now, this is just at 1%. So even the financial benefits to a bank to administer such an additional loan portfolio is not as attractive as conventional loans, which would be much more than a 1%. So I'm saying all this to say, it is in the interest of the bank that you get this forgiveness, they get their money, and we close the chapter. Because if that is not done, they are going to be strapped with this thing to be servicing. With that said, they are going to be very stringent. They're going to be very meticulous about the information that you submit. And as I said at the beginning of the video, it's almost going to look like a mini audit that the bank is conducting on you. That's not what it is, but they're going to feel that way because they're going to say, give this to me, prove this, why is this so, why is that so? And as I said, some of you will not necessarily have the ready answer, but get someone who can help you and you should be good to go. Okay? That is it. Now that's what it is. Once federal money flows, then there's always going to be this kind of cross check and balances at the end of the process. You have to prepare for it. All right. Well, I hope this helped you somewhat to get yourself cranked up, ready to roll, ready to roll. And please do not wait until it is time to submit the application to be looking at the form for the first time. Take a look, familiarize yourself, start working on it, etc. What I would do, and I do that quite often, like back in the day, like take a blank form, and just do a mock-up. Just a mock-up, you know what I mean? Just work through some fictitious numbers, just a mock-up to kind of get yourself into the flow, understand, and then see the kind of challenges and difficulties that confronts you, and that will get to say, oh, you know what? I need to double look at this here. I need to ensure I get this information, that documentation, so that when the real thing needs to be done, you're good to go. All right, good. That's my bit for the day. And so it's all good. David here, Etienne's Place. I'm around, I'm keeping safe, and I trust that you're doing the same. Take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. Keep on working hard, keep on trusting. I know a lot of my clients and friends are hurting, hurting because there's so many things that have gone on and still happening. My heart goes out to you, but I pray that you will keep strong, keep trusting in God, and He'll take you through. But all in all, take care, and we'll speak in the future.